Now, if you're a horror fan, you'll probably know that this is currently in cinemas. This is the remake, or more correctly, the reimagining of Friday the 13th, the great horror franchise from the 1980s. And I've seen it, and well, it's not much good. But here's the thing. It's basically the first few movies kind of compressed into one. If you're a fan of Friday the 13th, you'll know famously that in the first movie it's not Jason Voorhees who does the killing, it's Jason Voorhees' mum. She's doing the killing because her son Jason died before and she's getting revenge for it. In Friday the 13th Part 2, Mrs. Voorhees has been killed at the end of Part 1, and Jason, who actually isn't dead, wreaks revenge on the people who killed his mum, who was killing people because Jason Voorhees was dead. It kind of doesn't fit together. By the time we get to Part 3, which was in 3D, he had a burlap sack in 2, then he got a mask and he put a hockey mask on. So all these things come together in the new Friday the 13th, which is directed by Marcus Nispel from the production stable of the Honourable Michael Bay. And you'll know, of course, that they've been responsible for messing up some great horror franchises in the past, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I was watching the movie, and it's a guy running around with a machete killing, young people in variously gory ways. And like all these new modern horror remakes, it's more gory than the original, it's louder than the original, it's faster than the original, it's got more nudity than the original. All the kind of things which you'd expect teen slasher movies would kind of benefit from. And yet, it's not interesting, and it's not scary, and it's not involving. And I was trying to figure out exactly why it is. All worries about Michael Bay being the Antichrist aside, what is it that I really didn't like about Friday the 13th, the remake? I think it comes down to this. When the first Friday the 13th was made, it wasn't that it was a good film. It wasn't a good film. Actually, in many ways, it was quite a scrappy, badly made film. But there was a novelty of seeing a film that scrappy and that nasty being distributed by a big studio in a mainstream cinema. You see, before that you had grindhouse films, you had underground, nasty, gory movies, you had your Texas Chainsaw, you had Last House on the Left, you had all those movies which were not seen as mainstream movies. Then you had Halloween, which was seen in mainstream cinemas, but actually wasn't very gory. It was intelligent, it was originally called The Babysitter Murders, then it became slightly more kind of esoteric with the name Halloween, but it wasn't a full-on gore movie. See, what happened with the first Friday the 13th movie was that it took a grindhouse aesthetic and it put it into mainstream cinema. So you were watching a nasty, grimy movie, but in plush seats, in kind of polite surroundings. And that, I think, was the novelty. That was the thing that made it something special. And I really remember enjoying it as a kid. It was something that we hadn't seen before. Well, since then, of course, we've seen it a million times. Now, every A-list movie is trying really hard to look like a B-movie. Quentin Tarantino is working himself into the ground, trying to make his movies look like scuzzy grindhouse fare. Everybody knows what grindhouse movies looks like. There's no novelty, no originality anymore. So consequently, sitting in a posh multiplex cinema, watching a bunch of people being chased around by a guy with a machete, it's not new, it's not interesting, it's just boring.